Okay, on my end, it says that we're ready to go, ready to be live.
Okay, we're going to do it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Untitled Town Council meeting for Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And before we move on to roll call, I will read the teleconference meeting protocols as we have been following for a couple of years now. This regular meeting of the Town Council is being held pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E related to teleconferencing of meetings. The Governor's proclamation of a state emergency is still in effect, and the Town Council has made the necessary findings under the law to hold teleconference meetings in this manner. Proper notice was given for this meeting. All persons are permitted to join remotely and address the Town Council directly. And the meeting will be delayed in the event of a town-caused disruption. This meeting will be held in all respects according to the requirements of Government Code Section 54953E. The town manager is present in his office. I am present in the council chambers. Vice Mayor Dornbecker, along with council members Moeller, Knight, and Tagliabashi, along with staff, are participating remotely by video, audio, in conformance with this Government Code Section 54953E. Members of the public have been able to provide public comment either as a Zoom webinar attendee using the Zoom raise hand feature, and I will call on you at the appropriate time, or through email public comment to publiccomment@wyville.com. Also, email comment feature in PrimeGov can be used, which can be found as a speech bubble with the HTML agenda. Before proceeding, I'm going to remind all of our viewers, any vote taken during this teleconference portion of the meeting will be taken by a roll call vote led by the town clerk. In addition, any public hearing, administrative, regular agenda items that have representatives that are not staff, and that also includes our presentation, proclamation today, they will be allowed into the meeting at the appropriate time. So I'll now ask our town clerk, Eddie Gomez, to conduct roll and ask to confirm with each member of the town council they are able to hear the proceedings and have a copy of the agenda for this meeting. Eddie.
Mayor, I just wanted to stop you for a second. I'm getting no sound from YouTube, and the screen on the presentation computer is not full screen. So we need to make those adjustments really quick.
Okay. One thing we need everyone to do, please mute yourself, because we're hearing that there are several mics open that we're hearing background noise, so thank you.
Testing sound.
What?
I'm doing a test with the sound really quick.
I can hear you, Eddie. Eddie, if you're trying to speak to us, you're muted.
No, I was testing the sound. It seems like we now have sound on YouTube.
Okay. So we think we're back fully operational?
It appears that way based on what I can hear. Am I correct, Beatriz?
Seems like it.
You're trying to speak.
Yes, we do. We have sound. We're live.
I was testing the sound. It seems like we
Okay.
now have sound again.
We do. We're good.
Okay, very good. So we'll go back to our town clerk, Eddie Gomez, will ask it to confirm with each member of the council that they can, interesting, they can hear the proceedings and have a copy of the agenda.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Yes and yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes and yes.
Councilmember Mueller,
Yes to both.
Vice Mayor Dorian Becker,
Yes, and I apologize if my screen is showing backwards. I had a snafu, so it's not
No, it's fine.
good. Thank you. Good.
and Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes you might have a virtual background viewing on your computer that it's backwards, but it's showing correctly. Let the record reflect that all council members confirm they have the agenda and can hear the proceedings. So we will go ahead and move on to our, oh, and by the way, all are present as well. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next would be adoption of our agenda for today. I'm not aware of any.
Mayor, I am going to ask for one consideration, which is to move item 7B from the consent calendar. We have just a minor adjustment to make. You have all received a replacement, but in accordance, we want to make sure that we do that appropriately. So I'd ask for that consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's not changing the agenda. It's just pulling from the consent. So I'm just looking for actual changes to the agenda itself.
I'll move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion, Councilmember Mueller, second, Councilmember Knight. Eddie, roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Mueller,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dorian Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. Thank you. Next up, and I know we have some special guests with us today for our next item. We have Carol Shermang and Alan Tencher, who are representing our Park and Recreation Advisory Committee. Welcome. And also I see that we have Jennifer Carvalho, who's also here. And we get to have her join us this week as well. So thank you for being here. And I do have a proclamation that is in recognition of July as Parks and Recreation Month. And so I'm going to read this proclamation. Carol and Alan are here to represent the rest of the committee that works so hard to make sure that our park and rec programming is available to all of our residents. This is a proclamation in recognition of July as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreational programs are integral to communities throughout this country, including here in Yountville. Whereas Yountville promotes and improves the health and wellness of all who use our 10 parks, 3-mile pathway system, Yountville Community Center, and those who take part in our programs and events, including the Golden Ticket Program, Music in the Park Series, and Camp Wyville. Whereas our Parks and Recreation Department operates spaces and places to spend time being active, which positively impacts physical and mental health and well-being. Our programming and events are critical to the wellness of our residents, providing safe and welcoming opportunities to learn, socialize, and exercise. Whereas parks and natural recreation areas maintain the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for all ages to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Whereas the Town of Yountville staff take great pride in our parks and recreation facilities, using prudent planning and striving for a high level of maintenance for all of our parks, paths, and community spaces. Staff strives to provide high-quality programs, excursions, events, and services that are tailored to the needs and interests of our residents. Whereas, while our Yountville Parks and Recreation personnel support our residents with enjoyable and educational opportunities, staff also provide important services during disasters, power outages, and other public health emergencies, including operating an emergency shelter, cooling center, as well as health clinics for COVID-19 testing and vaccine distribution related to the pandemic and seasonal illnesses. Whereas the United States House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, along with the Town Council, do hereby proclaim July 2022 as Parks and Recreation Month and invite everyone to improve their health and well-being by visiting our parks, walking or riding on our paths, and participating in the programs and activities offered by the Town of Yountville. So I want to thank not only our members of our PRAC and our Park and Recreation staff, but all the other folks that volunteer, that help with our excursions, and those of you that are out participating in all of those. And so this is a month where we're going to highlight, but not the only month that we're going to enjoy all of that. So I'd like to invite Carol and Alan, and then also Jennifer to represent our staff. But if Carol first would like to share any thoughts.
Sure, yeah. I'm glad I could fill in for Sam and Alan here and Jen. I wish I was in Hawaii with her right now, to be honest, but we're here. I just think it's kind of fitting that didn't realize until Sam told me that it was July. And in 3 weeks, we'll be finding out our survey results, which I'm pretty anxious to find out how it worked out. And I know we did at Little Rancho here, we had a table set up a few weeks ago. Sandy Fagan, myself, and Dave Means, who's currently a Park and Rec Commissioner with myself and Alan and the rest of us. We had a card table set up, strategically timed when Oscar delivers the mail, because that's the biggest bang for the buck to find anybody here. So we, from 11 to 2, we had tables set up, and Jen was so kind. We had little giveaways. When they filled out their survey, they got a prize, or if they took it home, so we got it. So we distributed, we had collected about 28, and we gave out about a dozen plus. And then I took some to Bocce that night because we have a lot of members that live in Napa that don't get the email. It's like, well, it's all about the park. And I just, at the beginning of the Bocce said, if you could please fill it out, in case you don't know you're at Vetch Park right now, please mark that as your favorite, I say your favorite park. But so we got a lot of, and Sandy took some another night for that part. So that's July 13th. So that'll be right in the middle of July Park and Recs month to find out what the results are from the survey, which would be great. And, and Jen just started this week. I mean, camp started, today is day 2 for camp. So it's a busy summer, music and the movie. So thanks. I bet Alan might want to say something.
Yes, Alan.
I'm unmuted now. I hope, can you all hear me okay? Good. Well, I think Carol said pretty much everything. The Parks and Rec Committee and the Parks and Rec Department are very active here in town. The facilities we have, as I've mentioned to all of you before in the times I've had the privilege to speak before you, have been a wonderful asset to us as residents and as a place where we have brought up our children, and to have that as a resource and to continue to see the programs and facilities evolve as the demographics of town change and as the trends within the recreation community change, and most importantly, to have the support of the town council, both in spirit and financially, has been a real win-win. So just let me close and say thank you so much, council, for your support, and we'll continue to strive to keep doing the best that we can for the residents here.
Thank you, both Carol and Alan and your colleagues Jennifer, did you want to share some thoughts from your perspective, not only as a lifetime resident, but almost lifetime staff member?
Yes, please. I actually have some notes here too that Samantha wanted to send along. It's a privilege to speak for our department, and this month is actually going to be We Rise Up for Parks and Recreation is our theme for the Parks and Rec National Month here. With that, we also have this weekend, we have our first kickoff for the movies. We have Sing 2 on Friday. And then on Sunday, we have our second Music in the Park with Sticky Business Barbecue there. So come by and listen to some music and have a barbecue, have some barbecue sandwich. We also, on July 10th, will have Music in the Park and some special giveaways in honor of National Parks and Recreation Month. On July 13th, we will have our master plan in-person meeting, public input meeting. And July 15th, join us to celebrate Parks and Recreation Professional Day, and we'll have some free popsicles here at the community center. So from 1 to 3, come by and get your free popsicle. Month long, we'll be doing social media campaign, #RiseUpJuly. So you ask as a resident, there's nothing that's been more privileged of being born and raised here. I'm what's called in the rec field a rec rat. I was utilized the programs as a youngster, went up to the pool every day riding my bicycle. Yes, riding my bicycle from big old Yountville here up there, and spent many, many summer hours there, and continued through my journey here with the town. And as you see, here I am still today, just loving my town and loving my community and continuing to provide excellent programs with our wonderful team. So Parks and Rec, here we go. Let's rise up.
And it's only supposed to be in the low to mid 90s this weekend for our movies and music. So it should feel quite comfortable after this week.
Exactly.
And please share the town council, all of us, our appreciation for our staff. As I said, we often focus on the fun part of the job, but you've all rallied when we've needed the crisis response as well. And that just shows the kind of dedication and total commitment to our community and our residents. So please, on behalf of all of us, thank our entire team also.
Can I add one thing? Alan kind of touched on it, but look forward to the Park and Rec Commission working with the council on the master plan after the survey, what will be coming later, probably early fall, August and fall. So we'll look forward, the rest of our commission, to working with all of you then. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't realize that Alan and Carol would be here, so I wanted to thank them for being here for this proclamation. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but I can't help but with seeing Jen here is to take a moment to honor her. I saw on Facebook in the past week, Institute for Local Government named Jennifer as this week government champion, and their comment was, during the pandemic, Jennifer was a champion for the older population by creating programs dedicated to their health, happiness, and engagement and connection. She provided online training sessions to keep seniors to loved ones during long stretches of loneliness and isolation. Jennifer initiated thousands of channels with residents in the early months of the pandemic and delivered holiday care packages to bring positivity to the community. Jennifer's hard work shows her dedication and passion for serving the community and the continued importance of mental health. Great work. Congratulations, Jen. And, yeah, it really shows me, after listening to our proclamation, how much work that our Parks and Rec actually do related to more community services. They are just a much broader community service department. Thank you, Jen, for all that you did and for that, and exciting to have seen that recognition.
It's a privilege to be on a wonderful team. So I'm lucky to work amongst a lot of wonderful people.
And now I can cross that off my list of remarks I was going to make at the end with council comments. So you got to hear it at the beginning of the meeting instead. Thank you, Councilmember Knight. Yes, thank you all for continuing to serve our community through our Parks and Recs department. Like I said, we get to honor you in particular for July, but we know that you do a great job every month. And so thank you for that. Even in hot weather, even in cold weather, when we get that again. So we look forward to something in between also. Okay, that's our proclamation. Thank you, Alan and Carol, for representing your colleagues. And we're going to now move on to the rest of our agenda. That will be next. Item 6 is public comment on items not on our agenda. And I understand that we did receive kind of a late email from former Mayor Cindy Saucerman. I'll invite Eddie to please read that public comment now.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Dunbar, Council, Town Manager. Exciting news from your sister city, Todos Santos, Baja California Sur, Mexico. As your representative in Todos Santos, there are 2 new projects for me/us in the works I'd like to share. First, this event is entering its 10th year, but has been on hold due to the pandemic. Gastrovino Todos Santos Annual Food and Wine Festival is taking place November 11, 12, and 13, with a big tasting event on Sunday the 13th. Restaurants and wineries from all over Baja and mainland Mexico will be serving their specialties paired with world-class wines from Mexico's finest wine-growing regions. The producers have allocated an area to accommodate some of Yambio's culinary talent, as well as our renowned winemakers and their brands. Similar to the Taste of Yambio, each vendor will have a booth table and will be included in all of the marketing and public relation materials. I have attended this festival and it is amazing. Second, I am working with a small team of individuals to establish a foundation for the benefit of the children of Todos Santos who are interested in pursuing an Olympic sport. The children of Todos Santos are passionate about their sports, and including baseball, soccer, tennis, basketball, archery, taekwondo, and even golf. The foundation will provide the participation through fundraisers featuring sports figures and Olympians from around the world. In the meantime, if you have any questions or are interested in participating in either of the above, feel free to give me a call or email me, and I will be sure to get you the information you need to participate as a vendor, sponsor, or as an event attendee. Please let me know if you have any questions. Cindy Susserman.
It's nice to hear she's so dedicated to be our representative, attending all of the wine festivals on our behalf. That's much appreciated. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda, Eddie?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to our consent calendar. We are going to pull item 7B for an update. And there was a minor typo that was corrected in item 7I, and that is the NVTID work plan. There was just an extra 0 and a number that has been corrected. So I'll entertain a motion if there's no additional questions or requests to pull any items on items 7A through K, except for 7B.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar A through K, except for item B.
And I think I heard Councilmember Tagliabashi first, but
I'll second it.
Yeah, Councilmember Moeller did such a thorough job that the motion goes to Councilmember Moeller. Councilmember Tagliabashi was the seconder. Let's do a roll call vote, please, Eddie.
Councilmember Moeller,
Yes.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Aye.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doran Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. So those pass unanimously. Back to item 7B, and I'll call on our finance director to share what the updated information is that we need to consider. Celia.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The finance team, in conjunction with the Public Works Department, has been closely monitoring the expenditures in the Water Operations Department Fund 61, as we have initiated use of the town municipal well in this current fiscal year. Running the well has revealed some weaknesses in our existing well control infrastructure, and currently the well is inoperable, and the town is incurring unexpected costs to remove and repair the failed infrastructure. Because of this, staff is requesting that the town council approve an increased budget adjustment to the water operating department. The original budget adjustment request included $14,000 for the water operating fund. The proposed revision would add another $17,000 to cover the necessary repair work to the well, for a total budget adjustment of $31,000 to the water operating fund. This means an increase to the budget adjustment request from a total of $62,000 to a total of $79,000, to include this additional $17,000 for water, for the well repair. As Town Manager Rogers mentioned before, a revised staff report and resolution were emailed to the town council earlier today that reflect these requested changes. So if there are any other questions that I or Public Works Director Ferns could answer, please let us know.
Thank you. Just to be clear with everyone, this is the 2021-22 budget. Does not have anything to do with the budget considerations we're about to get into. So, Steve?
Correct, and I just want to point out that as this is our last meeting in the fiscal year, I'm very pleased to report that the town council will only have utilized approximately a little over a half of the annual contingency, and we will be returning approximately $250,000 to fund balance.
Very good. Are there any questions about the changes that Director King just presented? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 7B, this resolution as updated?
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Knight, second Councilmember Tagliabashi. A roll call vote, please, Eddie.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Aye.
Councilmember Mueller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doran Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for updating that information so we can be as accurate as possible. Okay, next up, we are moving on. We have no presentations or public hearings today. We'll get to, we'll start talking next budget, and we'll start off with item 10A. I don't know if Steve is leading into this or
Yes,
he is, and then we'll get to Celia.
yes. It's my privilege on behalf of our management team to share with you this year's town manager's budget message. And then Celia will follow up with a little bit more detail in terms of the process. Again, on behalf of the town's management team, honorable mayor, council members, what a difference a year makes is an apt description of this year's proposed budget when compared to last year's budget. Last year, we had cautious optimism as we presented and managed an expenditure plan based on conservative revenue projections, given the uncertainty about the anticipated economic recovery from the COVID pandemic. Yountville and the Napa Valley has seen a strong economic recovery with record-setting rebound in transient occupancy tax collections and a strong return in sales tax revenue, largely fueled by our restaurant sector. Revenue collection for fiscal year 21-22 will exceed our budget estimates collectively by over $2.5 million, creating significant unassigned fund balance as we end this fiscal year. And that will be a fun topic for later in the fall for the council. If there was a theme to our fiscal year 22-23 budget, it would likely be that of resumption of planned service levels and expenditures to that on par with 2019 before the pandemic hit. This year, our budget includes the resumption of internal fund transfers and discretionary trust contributions, which were halted during pandemic uncertainty. We are resuming our investment in our employee training and development and providing our employees with a 7% COLA after they agreed to not take a COLA last year to see how the financial situation evolved. Our town organization continues to pivot, evaluate, and refine many of our COVID practices to see which makes sense to continue as we move forward. We continue to invest in technology and software to support a virtual town hall where many transactions occur online or by phone. Using our investment in cloud technology to support remote work capabilities and improved online systems, and our continued implementation of OpenGov processes to offer online building permits and TOT payments this summer. The Town Council has approved implementation of the Washington Street Activation Zone as a continued economic recovery tool to assist local businesses with increased outdoor seating, to-go curbside parking, and temporary retail activations. Our proposed budget provides funding to support our increased upkeep of parks facilities experienced during the pandemic and the resumption of in-person parks and recreation programming, along with a level of Zoom-based programming to meet residents' needs, and the list continues. I remain incredibly proud of the resiliency and creative ideas from our Town of Yountville employee team. Job well done. The town experienced a 25% staff turnover during the pandemic period. Recently, we have welcomed a new town clerk, public works director, planning and building director, assistant planners, utility operators, management fellow, and management analyst deputy clerk to our team. At the town council's request, this budget includes 2 additional staff positions, one to assist in responding to the increasing level of code compliance efforts required across multiple departments, and the other in the information technology IT environment. As the past several budget cycles have shown, the town of Yountville has a unique general fund revenue stream compared to typical California communities. The town's revenue stream is heavily dependent on tourism revenue. During the past 2 years of the pandemic, the town experienced a $5.9 million revenue loss amongst TOT, sales tax, permits, and fee revenue. In a typical year, 70% of our general fund budget is derived from tourism-related activities, including TOT, restaurant and tasting room sales tax collections, which are paid principally by visitors to our town. We're fortunate to report that the economic foundation for this fiscal year looks more like the pre-pandemic 2019, where we were seeing 73% of our revenue is expected to be derived from tourism related. As we begin fiscal year 22-23, there continues to be a cautious optimism as to the continued level of record room rates, but with reduced occupancy rates and a question of how long these rates will be sustainable. Therefore, we remain conservative with TOT projections of only 7.5 million. This projection provides a realistic level of optimism and represents a return to pre-pandemic levels. As TOT is our most significant funding source, it is important not to over or underestimate the expected amount. However, we have exercised prudence and built our expenditure plan around this 7.5 million funding level. With the recent increase in residential home values and sale of the vintage estate property, there will be an adjustment in property tax revenue to 2.14 million, which is the highest level that we have seen and surpasses last year's 2.01 million. As we prepare this year's budget, and I don't get to say this very often, or not in my career, locally generated property tax revenue will be sufficient to pay for the 1.9 million cost in contracted public safety expenses for law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical service, which are the most basic of local government services. Notable components of this year's budget include, with the exception of the water utility enterprise, that the proposed 20.2 million all funds budget is balanced. It is funded by projected revenues and does not require the use of any reserve funds. While the wastewater fund is in improved financial shape because of the 5-year rate study adopted in 2018, the water operating fund continues to navigate the negative effects of significantly higher than anticipated cost of water purchased from the state veterans home. The town has begun a new 5-year rate study to implement for a target date of late 2022. General fund revenue remains volatile as TOT and sales tax projections of 7.5 million compared to 5.25 last year and 1.64 compared to 1.27 in sales tax are conservative estimates based on a resumption of level of service prior to the pandemic and continued economic recovery. If the recovery is interrupted, these revenue estimates could likely be reduced. General fund expenditures, 10.4 million, remain within available revenue stream of 12.6 million. No use of either the Revenue Stabilization Reserve or Emergency Reserves Fund is anticipated. The proposed budget reflects a return to pre-pandemic levels of services. At the Town Council's request, the increase of 2 employees, which will bring us to our permanent employee count of 34 full-time employees. Public safety costs increased by 3.4% to 1.23 million for law enforcement, and fire is projected to cost 984,000 prior to the fire tax credit offset. Employee bargaining units and management employees will receive a 7% COLA, and as mentioned, a resumption of funding of our OPEB internal payroll rate, and including resumption of funding for our PERS UAAL trust fund also at 5%. We're very fortunate that we have approximately 5.4 million in the OPEB trust fund and 2.6 million in the PERS UAAL. I will also point out that we're seeing some market volatility, so those fund balances will likely be going down and then probably up during the recovery. It includes resumptions of annual transfers to Fund 81 and 82, which provide for fleet replacement and facilities reserve funds. These are where we get ahead of putting money aside so that when the community center or town facilities need something, we have a funding source for it. Continues implementation of technology applications, including Laserfish for records management, CrimeGov for paperless agenda management and live meeting broadcasts, and increased utilization of OpenGov for budgeting, online permitting, and transparency portal. We continue to actively use Measure T and SB1 funds to maintain our streets, which are at a PCI rating of 78, which is the highest in all of Napa County. And I will share with you, our focus is really strategically on what does it take to get us to an 80, because we know that you all want to get us to an 80. So we're working with that, and our plans will address that with a preparation for future microsurfacing and work. All reserve fund balance targets are met or exceeded, and as mentioned, we'll have opportunity for the council to allocate unassigned fund balance coming in the fall. We have a continued need to monitor the fiscal health of the water fund because of the significant increases in cost of water purchase. And I really just need to be really clear. That's what's driving the water fund. It's not the operating cost. It's not the maintenance of the distribution system. It is purchase costs that went from 500,000 a decade ago to over 2,000 an acre foot. And then we're very proactive right now on monitoring and being prepared to make use of federal infrastructure grant programs, especially if it can help in our utility operations and streets. Pandemic and other natural events aside, Yountville truly remains a unique and vibrant community which offers our residents and visitors a truly exceptional wine country lifestyle with small town charm. Our dedicated town staff team works hard to implement the goals established by the mayor and town council. This budget continues to reflect and incorporate the town council's strategic plan framework and its 6 critical success factors: exceptional town services and staff, engaged residents, responsible fiscal policy, quality of life, premier destination, and visionary leadership. This October is my 15th anniversary as Yountville Town Manager. It continues to remain an honor and privilege to work with our lean and talented Town of Yountville employee team who are committed to providing the Yountville community with a high level of municipal services. I also want to acknowledge the leadership and support of our mayor and town council as we move forward to the new normal after these past pandemic years. Without your continued support, commitment, questioning, and challenging, our town staff would not be as well positioned to deliver the high quality of services for our community as we do. I also want to acknowledge the contributions of our finance team and management team who have worked to refine our use of OpenGov technology as part of the budget process. As many of you know, we are now transitioning to an online budget. We will offer a hard budget copy because there are a few folks, namely myself, that still need a hard copy to read, but we are moving forward in many areas, and I think you're going to be very impressed when you see the online budget. Budget development is truly a team effort, and it's appropriate to acknowledge and thank the town staff who are most directly involved in the drafting and preparation of this budget, which I like to refer to as our Bible. The budget provides the guidance and direction for how we're going to use the resource allocated by the town council, which includes our staff, funding for projects and activities. So I'd like to acknowledge Julie Baldia, Deputy Director of Human Resources and Information Technology, Kyle Batista, Financial Analyst, Beatriz Becerra, Management Fellow, John Ferens, Public Work Director, Eddie Gomez, Town Clerk, Larry Hancock, Municipal Operations Manager, Samantha Holland, Parks and Recreation Director, Celia King, Finance Director, Kirsty Shelton, Planning and Building Director, Jacob Solis, Engineering Technician, Rosalvo Ramirez, Deputy Public Works Director, and Erica T. Garden, Finance Public Works Management Analyst. So with that, we're very pleased with the budget process and the proposed budget. And I have to apologize, I didn't leave Celia a lot of room, but she will provide an overview of a little bit related to the process. And of course, we're both happy to take any questions you may have regarding the proposed budget.
Thank you, Steve. And before Celia, you start, I want to acknowledge Steve's participation and involvement in the formation and management of our budgets. I've been on this council for 18 years, and I believe we've adopted balanced budgets every single year. And that's impressive. In the 15 years that Steve has been here, I know we have. And so that's taken a lot of effort, a lot of discipline to make that happen. And today is one of those culminations where it feels like we might go through things relatively quickly. It's because we've been spending months and months of effort, especially those of you here at Town Hall, getting us to this point. So let's not pretend that this isn't the culmination of probably hundreds of hours of work. So thank you for your comments, Steve, and Celia. Let's hear some good news here.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I'll be brief. There are a lot of numbers thrown around during budget time. There's numbers in the staff report. There were numbers in the town manager message. There's a lot of numbers in the budget. So I'm just going to focus on one number, which is the total proposed expenditure budget for fiscal year 22-23 for all funds, as the town manager mentioned earlier, is $20.2 million. So that definitely reflects a return to more normal operations. We did start the budget process back in February with the key budget parameters, and revenue expectations didn't really flex all that much. We pretty much stuck to those numbers with the exception of a little bump in sales tax. And then a lot of work went in March and April, entering departmental budgets and prepping for the budget workshops in May with the town council. So the major changes that stemmed from those budget workshops in May were the addition of the full-time code compliance position, creating a new fund to account for transactions related to Upper Valley disposal, franchise fees, revenues, and applicable expenditures, as well as adding the full-time information technology position. Another highlight of this proposed budget is, of course, that the general fund is balanced with projected revenues covering expected expenditures, and reserve balances remain strong. And so just to reiterate the town manager's sentiments of thank yous. Thank you, of course, to the town council for your guidance and direction as to your vision for the upcoming fiscal year. Thank you to Town Manager Rogers for all the support and leadership as we work through projecting all the revenues and expenditures. Thank you for the public comment received at budget workshops. Community engagement is a very important part of the budgeting process, so we hope that this continues and even increases in future years. And of course, thank you to all the department heads and staff who put so much of their time and effort into crafting the budget that really shapes our daily activities for the next 12 months. We had quite a few new players this year, and everyone was very willing, jumped on board with our processes and met deadlines, which really helps us in the finance department to make this large document that is really, as Steve said, our Bible. So lastly, I just want to encourage members of the public to visit townofyountville.com and view the online budget book. And please reach out to the finance department by phone or email if you have any questions, because we really hope this will be a resource for people. Has a lot of interesting information, and we want to help encourage the community to use it as a resource and really learn about town operations. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Celia, thank you so much. And I'm going to add a couple other numbers. I know you focused on the 20 million, but looking at general fund expenditures estimated at 10.4 and revenue estimated at 12.6, those are pretty critical numbers also, that we have some flexibility to respond to additional needs and circumstances as they come up. Also, I want to highlight the discipline that this council and previous councils have shown when we do have unassigned fund balance and unanticipated revenues like we have seen this year. We are very disciplined about how we allocate that funding, and we often will basically help out future councils and future budgets with that discipline. And so I want to recognize that we have the benefit of having resources in order to do that. Most cities have no options, and we have many options, thankfully, because of our very smart and thoughtful finance team and all of our staff being very respectful of our revenues, also respectful of our expenditures. And we don't just spend money to spend money. It all has a purpose. And for the 18 years, as I mentioned earlier, that I've been on this council, especially as mayor for 12, we have shown real, not only fiscal discipline and strength, but just an awareness of not wanting to burden the town in the future. And so it's a very honorable place to be. And I'm very proud of that work that we've all done together. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions specifically of either Steve's remarks or Celia's kind of wrap up as it stands. I know we'll have a chance to comment generally about the budget in a moment, but right now it's just about any questions specifically. Seeing none. Eddie, do we have any public comment on this item 10A, this budget item?
We do not, Mayor.
Thank you. Also, I'm going to echo, based on that, I'm going to echo Celia's offer for our residents to visit Town of Yountville website because we have laid it all out there. It's very public. It's very transparent. Sometimes we hear from folks a month from now, well, why are you spending this money or that money or not spending this money or that money? We've been very forthcoming with our plans this next fiscal year. So we don't get a lot of public comment, at least coming into a new budget. We do get some public comment while we are in the budget cycle. So please educate yourselves ahead of time and let us know if there are any thoughts that you have about it. If there are no additional questions, and we have no public comment, I'll entertain comments prior to and then a motion from council. Any general thoughts from council? Usually there are. So Vice Mayor, I think you're reaching for your hand. So Vice Mayor, why don't you go ahead?
I just got my hand up. Thank you, Mayor Dunbar. I want to thank both Steve and Celia for once again presenting a very smart budget and one that we can truly understand. And thank you for the effort that you've made on our part. We're very proud of your Celia, your growth in being the CFO, and we're very proud of you. So congratulations and thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you. Councilmember Tagliabashi.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar. I stand with Vice Mayor Dornbecker and congratulate all of staff for the many hours and multiple meetings that go on around these budgets. I know how long it takes and how many hours and revisions it goes through, and it just seems to be endless, and you all do a great job, and you put up with a lot of questions from us and the changes that get made during the workshop, and you somehow manage, Celia, with your staff, Kyle and Julie and the others to get it done on time every year. It's amazing to me. I'm not surprised, Celia, that you're successful. To anyone who was paying attention, that was obvious what you were doing before would contribute to the success that you're enjoying now, and it's rightly deserved. So congratulations to you all, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moeller.
I'm going to thank our, first it goes without saying, our wonderful staff who's gotten us to this point, but I really want to give a thank you to our public. Our public allows us to collect our revenue and spend it on, things that really are truly important to any community, like, slip lining our pipes, making sure our infrastructure is there, allowing us to put this money in reserve funds because it's really good, prudent funding mechanisms for, as the mayor said, for future councils and emergencies that pop up. I know, I think we all see challenges from other communities around us. And because our community really allows our council who can then, work with the staff to do these things that just are, it's really the bread and butter of a community when you're really making sure we're just taking care of general business, as well as funding stuff for, all of this is for our residents. We don't do it for anybody else except our residents. And anyway, those are my comments. So thanks again.
Thank you. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add to everyone's their comments as well. I appreciate that the town manager and Director King really emphasize the fact that this really is a team project for their team. They are dynamic in helping organize this event, and we are very fortunate to have their leadership. It's we are very, very fortunate. As Councilmember Moeller said, and the mayor mentioned that we're also very fortunate to have a vast majority of our revenues based funding coming from visitors coming to this community, and TOT tax and residents and restaurant sales tax. So as a community, we do all that work that Councilmember Moeller talked about, including when we get to the next item, almost $16 million in CIP funding. But we're very fortunate, and I thank staff. I just only have quick comments that I do want to comment. The addition of the code enforcement officer and the information technology officer, they're going to provide services that we need as we move forward in an expanding economy and managing. And so I support that. And also, I also want to recognize the fact that staff notes that our budget and funds are doing all very well. We have a challenge with the water utility account, but we're working forward to put together a new water rate study and working with the California Veterans Home to get a new rector contract. Water utilities will be a focus for in the next year. So thank you all for all the work you've done.
Thank you. And the last comment, since I've shared my thoughts already, I want to recognize again our staff and the respect that our entire team has and the council has for our staff. It's really very obvious as we went through this pandemic and the recognition that we were really concerned about our financial status, and all of our employees recognized that and basically sacrificed along with us. And we were extra careful and thoughtful so that we could continue providing the core services that we need. And then when we saw that we had better than projected resources, we were able to say thank you for that. And again, we are really working as a community, as a family, not only here at Town Hall and out on the streets with our public works team, but, and I think it was Councilmember Moeller that mentioned our residents giving us that trust that we all are doing a very good job. We're being very financially prudent, we're being thoughtful, and we are being, again, projecting what is needed for our entire community, and not just this year. We're putting funding in place that's going to help us for decades. We're going to talk more specifically in a moment about our CIP, which is really long-term infrastructure, proactive funding and work plan. But we are not just worried about what we're doing today. And we're not just worried about part of our community. It's about our entire community and wanting to make sure that we set up for success, even when we are confronted with things like wildfires and a global pandemic. it's amazing how strong we came through all of those challenges. And I hope that we never see a pandemic again, but I'm afraid that we'll probably see a wildfire again. And we, again, stand prepared for really anything that comes our way. So thank you also to my council colleagues for working together. Again, we don't always see that in even our neighboring jurisdictions, the kind of cohesiveness and partnership that we all have for each other. And it really shows when we can come together and find how we are going to basically invest in our community. And that's what we're doing. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution. Well, I'll actually let the motioner read the lengthy title for this resolution, but is there a motion to adopt our 2022-2023 budget? Don't make me call on somebody after all that. Councilmember Mueller, I think it looks to me like you're looking for, or Councilmember Tagliabashi, you ready to go?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as proposed.
We want to formalize this with, I'll read this and you tell me if this is your motion, that we consider adoption of resolution number 22-4132, adopting the 2022-2023 operating budget appropriations GAN limit for fiscal year 2022-2023, salary ranges and existing fiscal policies, general finance policy, town investment policy, use of long-term debt policy, OPEB trust investment policy, fund balance policy, utility enterprise rate policy, use of drought water reserve policy.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I'll second that.
I thought so. Motion, Councilmember Tagliabashi, seconded Councilmember Mueller. Roll call vote, please, Eddie.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Aye.
Councilmember Mueller,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dornbecker,
Yes,
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. So that budget is adopted unanimously. Thank you all very much. But we have more work to do. Next up, item 10B, consider adoption of resolution 22-4133, adopting the town's 5-year capital improvement program for fiscal years 2022-2023 to 2026-2027, and determining consistency with the general plan. So let's start with Steve. I don't know if you're going to lead into this as well, or if we're going to go straight into staff report.
We will go straight to our Public Works Director, who apologizes for the fact that he does not have a 20-slide PowerPoint presentation.
Well, we still have the water conservation update coming, so go ahead, John.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As you know, I am John Ferns, your Public Works Director, and before you is the annual and 5-year capital improvement program budget. As everyone is already aware, it's coupled with the budget that you just adopted. I want to reiterate the gratitude and thanks to everyone from the town council to all of the people that worked on the budget and all the departments. We can't do it without you. When we start in November, June seems so far away, but as it turns out, it's here before you know it. And here we are today presenting this. So thank you to everyone that was involved. This budget before you, as you've heard, coupled with the other budget, is the culmination of multiple budget sessions. So I'm going to spare you the 20-slide PowerPoint and lots of the details and just jump into the highlights of what you can expect in this coming year. The first one that we like to talk about is Measure T. So this year's Measure T project will rehabilitate 4 of the lowest roads in town. So Yount Mill Road, Mesa Court, Humboldt, and Harvest are all going to get work done on them. And in consultation with our pavement expert, we're cautiously optimistic that if the work goes well, our PCI will be approaching 79.7. And so we're bumping up against that 80 mark, and I know that's our goal. So stay tuned. Next year at this time, hopefully we'll be able to report that as a solid number. The other big ticket item to expect this year is the use of Fund 81 to do a series of renovation projects at Community Center and Community Hall. That, as everyone knows, those buildings have been actively used for the 10 years that they've been since they were refurbished last time. So they're in need of work, proactive maintenance to keep them up to the standards that we are accustomed, as well as to maintain the value of the buildings. So it's important to note that while a big project is being scheduled at the end of August and into early September, in coordination with the Parks and Recs Department, where they're going to shut the buildings down. And we've planned this so the impact for the bulk of these projects will happen in a time that they're prepared to do things outside of the building. So we're going to remove and replace the service in the front courtyard. We're going to replace the countertops in the restrooms at the community center. We are going to repaint the interior of both buildings, and then resurface the gym floor and restripe it with the modern sports lines that they need for what they use there. So that's a big thing that's happening. Some of that work was put off due to the COVID pandemic, and this budget reflects what Town Manager Rogers said at the beginning. This is a resumption of services. The other thing that we want to report out is Fund 82. This is the first time we'll be using Fund 82, which is our vehicle replacement fund, and we're going to be seeking to replace 2 of our traditional gas-powered pickup trucks with comparable electric versions of the same thing. And so that's kind of the highlights of this year's budget. If you have any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. And thank you again to the council and everyone that helped make this happen today.
John, thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report on our CIP? Seeing none. Eddie, do we have any public comment on this particular item?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Knight, did you have a question here?
I'll ask it later, or speak later about it. Thank you.
Okay, so there is no public comment. So I guess now is when to speak later. Councilmember Knight?
I just, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to thank Director Ferns for his report and for the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, we're very privileged to have the funding to be able to put together a 5-year capital improvement program that's over 16 million, projected $16 million in funding. So I appreciate all the work you've done. And my only request is that as a part of the community facilities and projects, that we're sensitive when we replace the gym floor in the community hall, so that we'll be able to have our the timing for it, so we'll be able to have our Kiwanis crab feed in the end of January. So other than that, thank you for all your work.
Okay, there's the first official individual plug that Director Ferns gets to navigate with his scheduling. Yes, Vice Mayor Dornbecker.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this budget information for the CIP. I was wondering, it talks about $34,000 for the installation of EV charging, and I was wondering if the location for the new chargers has been chosen, and where is it going to be?
The new locations have yet to be determined, but we will be working. We'll be working together to arrive at where we think those should be.
Okay, I just wondered. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I believe I mentioned when we were talking about unassigned fund balance that might be a location to even invest additional finances if that allows us to get broader coverage, if we feel like that budget item is a little bit limited. So we'll see about that. Thank you. Councilmember Mueller?
Yes. Director Ferentz, I'm one of those who really wants us to hit that 80% mark, and just a kind of semi-glib comment. All you need is a policy on significant figures, and your 79.7 will now become 80. But in all seriousness, that 80 number, we've been hearing about that for years and years. We're so close. And as everybody knows, once we hit that 80 number, we're really going to be able to get a lot more grants and other, financial support from a lot of other different agencies. So, 79.7, it's 80 in my book if you can get there, because that's a rounding error. So anyway, those are my only comments. Great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Tagliabashi.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar. I just wanted to congratulate Director Ferns and the Public Works staff, Deputy Director Ramirez and Management Analyst Teagarden, Engineering Aide Jacob Solis, and the Public Works Manager Larry Hancock. I know they start just after Thanksgiving, so this has been going on quite a long time, as Director Ferns noted, and boy, it just feels good to get to this point, and congratulations to you all. Well done. So happy for y'all.
Thank you. And I'm going to add on one additional comment again, like I mentioned before with the entire staff, but specifically calling out our Public Works team. Not just the average CIP projects are being delivered by our Public Works staff. They are also the ones out in extreme weather conditions, responding in disasters, supporting all of the activities that we have. It could even be an unrelated traffic redirection due to an accident, and our folks are out there managing the impacts here in town. And so it goes well beyond this program, but it's also critical to identify and recognize and appreciate the fact that we continue to be proactive about our infrastructure maintenance. And again, we don't have to look very far to see the consequences of when you aren't doing that, whether it by choice or by necessity. We are very proactive, even with our major road, street and road repairs, replacement. Looking back to when we completely redid Madison, and then also when we've done the 2 phases of Washington Street, significant projects that were managed so eloquently and effectively. And it's also the smaller projects, the water main, the water main breaks aren't small, but those impacts that are outside of this plan. And this plan is a wonderful, thoughtful plan to move forward. So I just want to recognize again the multiple layers that kind of complement the capital improvement plan that we are hopefully about to unanimously adopt. So again, thanks to everyone that makes that possible. I will entertain a motion to adopt this resolution, Resolution 22-4133, adopting the town's 5-year capital improvement program for fiscal years 2022 and 2023 to 2026, 2027, and determining consistency with the general plan. Vice Mayor? You're muted.
I wanted to make that motion, and I'm in the wrong, here it is, sorry.
Well, I read through the whole title, if you could.
All right,
Yeah.
as described, I propose that we approve the approval of the budget of the CIP plan.
I'll second.
Yeah, I did all that reading for you. Motion by Vice Mayor Dornbecker, second Councilmember Mueller. Roll call, please, Eddie.
Vice Mayor Dornbecker,
Yes.
Councilmember Mueller,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Tagliabashi.
Aye.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. Thank you. That also passes unanimously. Now, John, get to work. What are you doing sitting here? All right, next up, item this is 10C, talking about general municipal election. I won't read through all of that yet. I think we'll start. I don't know, again, Steve, if you're going to lead into this or if we're going to go straight to Eddie.
The town clerk is prepared and does have a short PowerPoint to discuss this and share with the council and community.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me open the PowerPoint and share my screen really quick. Okay, well, as you know, it is election seasons, and as our municipal code section 2.04.070 states that we must hold general municipal elections for the town the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even number of years. And with this resolution, we need to call, the council needs to call, give notice, and consolidate the November 8, 22 general municipal election, and include in the voter for consideration the positions of mayor and 2 council member seats. Now, for this staff report, I added this PowerPoint presentation with important dates and some short information, important information that we want our residents to know. First of all, on July 18, 2022, residents, eligible voters that are residents of Youngville may start collecting nomination papers for the 2022 November election, which opens on July 18 and closes on August 12, 2022 at 5 p.m. On July 22nd, 2022, by July 27, 2022, the council must call and give notice of holding of this general municipal election. And before these dates, to give the board of supervisors enough time to add the consolidated election with the county, with Napa County. The town has chosen August 26, 2022 to hold the candidate orientation in town council chambers. And in October 10, 2022, voters will receive, registered voters will receive the vote by mail ballots. Again, the upcoming seats that we have open will be 2 council member seats for a 4-year term and the mayor for a 4-year term. Now, the California Elections Code, sections 10.2020-10220-10230 state that individuals officially receive, circulate, and file nomination papers during the July 18, 2022 and August 12, 2022. These nomination papers must be submitted by 5 p.m. If an incumbent seat fails to submit nomination papers by this deadline, non-incumbent candidates have until 5 p.m. on August 17, 2022 to file nomination papers. The town clerk staff will issue nomination papers during regular business hours, which are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Fridays. Now, the town clerk staff will verify eligibility to run with the county prior to releasing the nomination papers. And potential candidates are encouraged to contact the town clerk office to schedule an appointment to take out and or file nomination papers. Appointments can be made by email, by emailing the town clerk's office at townclerk@whiteville.com. Now, we just want to make a note that in the original PowerPoint that was sent out and the staff report that was sent out to the public, it had townclerk@townofyoungville.com. That is incorrect. It is townclerk@whiteville.com. And the 2022 elections website will go live on July 1st, 2022. The website to find all the information on elections and pulling out nomination papers is townofyoungville.com/elections. And does anybody have any questions at this point?
Eddie, thank you very much. Any questions from council about the presentation? Any, do we receive any public comment on this item, Eddie?
We did not, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the request for action is to consider this adoption. What I wanted to do before we go there, is mention a couple things. We were disappointed this primary election cycle to not have a vote center locally. The previous election, we were able to strongly encourage the elections officer and staff to have a vote center, and we were successful in originally changing their original plan, which was to not have a vote center the previous election, and we had one this year. We were unsuccessful. I know that Councilmember Knight has already reached out, as I have along through the town manager, when we were first notified about no vote center for the primary election. The feeling has been that we have a unique situation here, especially with our veterans home and the ability or challenges actually for mobility of many of the residents of the veterans home in particular, but also in our community, to have to go to a different vote center if that's their choice for how to vote. Yes, we have a drop box here, and yes, you can certainly easily put your ballot in the mail with no postage necessary. But the support of a vote center, I think, is important to our community. We will continue to advocate, but what we have been told is more volunteers are needed to operate a vote center here in Yountville. And so we may need our members of the public to step up and help volunteer so that we can have that opportunity here. I would also just like the residents to know that both I and the town manager have been in communication with the elections department about this very issue. And I also appreciate Councilmember Knight having taken an extra effort to contact the elections officer also with the same request. So we're doing what we can to make sure that that happens for the general election. There is typically a much higher turnout of voters in general elections versus primary elections. And so we think that need might be even greater come this November. So I want to just put that out there. Are there any other thoughts prior to, or I'll accept a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Muller.
that we approve resolution number 22-4134, calling and giving notice of the holding of a general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November the 8th, 2022, for the election of one mayor and 2 council members, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Napa to consolidate and render specified services to the town relating to the conduct of the statewide general municipal election to be held on the same date.
I'll second.
So I heard Councilmember Muller, and I think that was Councilmember Knight that had 2 syllables ahead of the vice mayor on that.
Okay.
It was almost simultaneous. Doesn't really matter. But motion by Councilmember Muller, second by Councilmember Knight. Eddie, roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Muller,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Tagabashi,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dornbecker,
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. Thank you. And Eddie, thank you for that. You're going to have your hands full along with Hillary's help, I hope, this election season. So good luck to you there.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next item, 10D, as it relates to an item that we have discussed previously and made some adjustments to this initial ordinance. And so I'll invite our town manager to talk about our expressive activities and expressive events ordinance for consideration. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor Council. I'm going to go over briefly what we learned from our previous discussion. And that was that the town attorney and I were focused on an outcome and didn't necessarily do a good job of connecting and explaining the basis. So with that, we also heard loud and clear that our approach created unintended and really unanticipated confusion or concern, and we took that to heart. So what we have really tried to do is recognize that the intrigue came because we had a situation with candidates asking about setting up to collect nominations. And we also had the farm labor group that did a protest march. And I share that only because we've had some inquiry as to, doesn't the town have something better to do, or what are we doing? But the reality is we did want to try to facilitate in the right way. In our typical peddlers permit, solicitor's permit, and encroachment permit, were just not appropriate tools for this. So the town attorney and I completely have repivoted the approach, and we're taking a very simple approach, which is all expressive activities are permitted. And I have a list of all the typical activities in the staff report, and only on very limited situations is a permit necessary. And those will involve a large crowd of over 20 for a planned event, keyword planned event, and also activities that are going to block a street or a sidewalk, such as a protest march or something with the organizers, and or those that are setting up stages or equipment and stuff like that in the public right of way. I also had the opportunity to reach out and talk to several of the residents that have shared their concern. And generally the feedback was they appreciated the fact that we're taking this to heart and working on the presentation of a little more definition in terms of protecting and explaining that our whole intent really is to ensure that the opportunity for expressive activity is actually protected, and that approach. So also clarify that the permit would be a no-fee permit. Again, we want to try to be helpful and facilitate, not stop. So with that, I'll let Gary add if there's anything more he'd like to add, but a complete reapproach, and we appreciate the public and the council for their input as we revised.
Thank you. Yes, Gary, additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would just add that was a succinct overview of when the permit's required and when it's not. We did take seriously the comments from the council and also from the public at the last meeting at which this was considered. And the ordinance now requires a permit under those limited circumstances that the town manager just managed, and also expressly exempts these activities from the encroachment permit process, the special event permit process, and the peddler and solicitor permit process, all three of which sometimes applied to these types of activities in town. And this will make it more straightforward for town staff and for your town attorney to administer those ordinances.
Thank you. And I appreciate the revised, not only the language in the ordinance, but the perspective, because what we do need to do is be prepared to control a situation if it needs controlling, but we're not limiting, restricting, or prohibiting free speech. And let's just be very clear about that. There are some, in some cases, some very practical issues we have to be prepared for to keep the public safe and keep the potential the speakers also safe. And so really, I think that's the main focus of this effort. It's not to be restrictive, but just to be prepared to handle any potential impacts. Are there any questions from council of the staff report? Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. And I hope you can hear me because I keep getting an unstable audio notice on my computer, probably because of the 100-degree weather. So I just have a couple thoughts, suggestions. I apologize to focusing on budget and some other issues. I ask him this, but these are two suggestions maybe to make his job in this process a little bit easier. The first one is in the resolution, it states that after submitting an applicant shall schedule at least one meeting with the town manager by person or by via telephone. And, for some of these applications, that's going to and maybe delay a permit or non-permit. Maybe it could change from or may, or the town manager may require. And the other item was just general, the note that you have to apply for a permit if it's 20 or more persons. And the only thing that concerns me is thinking back at the city council election a couple of years ago. I had a resident that said, I want to get a few folks together at North Park and have you meet them and talk. And so they sent out an email and would ask, 30, 35 people, 10, 15 couples showing up at the park, which was fairly easy to, that obviously exceeds the 20-person requirements. So I guess my question for town manager is can we discuss increasing that so that we're not creating an issue, or is my concern not warranted for someone requesting to, by email getting 20 or 30 people plus out for a conversation with a candidate?
So I'm going to offer, and Steve can follow up with this. You're basically using public property for what you could argue being a private organized event, and I'm keenly aware of this, having gone through it recently. In other jurisdictions, not only are you required to have a permit for a gathering exactly like you just described, but if it is an organized gathering, to have a space that is reserved and or used by a group of people. Not only was I required to have a permit, I was also required to pay a fairly significant non-resident user fee, and so it is actually more restrictive in other jurisdictions to have a gathering like you just described. One of the reasons that it was important for us to get ahead of this prior to the general election cycle is for that very reason. It is public space, and if somebody has rented that space at a park, for example, and then a casual gathering of 15 couples shows up, there may be a problem with having those two activities. Having a permit on file recognizes that somebody is preparing to use a certain space and has reserved it. And I believe what Steve was saying is that no fee would be charged in that case. And maybe Steve, if you wanted to make sure that I'm representing that correctly.
Well, I think what you're both talking about are actually two subsets that are related but not necessarily the same. Because as you're alluding to, Mayor and Councilmember Knight, there is the opportunity for a candidate to rent the facility or reserve it. What we're really talking about here is a planned activity that is of a larger nature, whether it's that march or, and I'm using the word planned because we carefully, we're not talking about trying to stymie spontaneous, like when we have vigil ceremonies or something like that. So I think the challenge for us is, whatever number you put in is really a placeholder to try to help gauge so that people know. A lot of our park sites, 20 is bigger than many of them. So that's where we kind of came with that number. But it certainly, again, and also, I would also say as a person that gets phone calls periodically from residents, they'll go, there seems to be a group gathered, and 20 is a noticeable size. But I think in the case that you're talking about, Councilmember Knight, if it's at the park and it's spontaneous and it grows and you walk over, these are not, we're not instantaneously going to be chasing these. This is really the opportunity here is for us to work with people that are trying to, especially the labor groups and things like that, and some of the formal protest groups, they actually want to do it right and they work with folks. So that's That's where the focus really is. Those are the ones that are going to come in and get a permit. If 25 people walk over and drop in on a park spot, that's generally going to look like it normally does on a drop-in. It just, they won't have the benefit of a reservation, which they could get if they rented the space.
Thank you. Mayor, I appreciate, your experience and your comments and the town managers. And that was basically on the town manager in this process that, but seems planned sometimes is spontaneous. And, I think in the end, it's near impossible to write an ordinance that's not going to have to thread a needle at one time or another. So, I guess the argument is we have to start somewhere, and if we need to review it, we will in the future at some point. So thank you for both your comments, and I support the ordinance. I just was trying to recognize at the time spontaneous versus planned is of the beholder. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we have already experienced activities that one could call spontaneous and another could call planned. Even if it is a example of the celebration of Rose Solis's life and having a gathering that started on private property and then it moved down public street to another private property. And knowing that's going to happen ahead of time, there was no intention of limiting it. It was just about controlling the impact. So I think that would be an example of wanting to be aware, so we could have, in that case, it was some traffic control
Actually, Mayor, I think that's a very good footnote. The folks that were involved with that came to the town. The town was involved. We worked with some parameters, and we actually had we had a control point to lead the march and a follow vehicle to protect the marchers. So actually that is a really great example of a planned event that probably was a little bit larger than anybody anticipated. But again, that's exactly, I think, the spirit of what we were talking about, because the organizers talked to the town staff. We looked at what we thought we had there. It created a plan to support it, not stop it, to support it.
Right. Yes, Gary.
I just wanted to address Councilmember Knight's first question that he had as well about the meeting with the town manager. The process under the ordinance is currently drafted has an application submittal, certain information. There's deadlines for doing that. Once a complete application is submitted, the town manager has a certain number of days to act on it. The meeting operates separate from that. It also needs to occur, but the application submittal and the town manager's deadline to act on it happens once the application is complete, separate from the meeting. That answers the question.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions about this report and the ordinance? Any public comment received on this item, Eddie?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. So is there action? Anyone like to request? Yes, Vice Mayor?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to confirm that this is for, there would have to be an application if there are more than 20 people intended. Is that correct?
For a planned activity, yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Mueller?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
All right, I would like to introduce and waive the first reading of ordinance number 22-508, an ordinance of the Town Council, the Town of Yountville, adding chapter 8.26 to Title 8 of the Yountville Municipal Code regarding expressive activities and expressive events.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
I'll second.
See, Councilmember Tagliabashi still getting in there a little bit earlier. Councilmember Mueller with the motion, seconded Councilmember Tagliabashi. Roll call, please, Eddie.
Councilmember Mueller,
Yes.
Councilmember Tagliabashi,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dornbecker,
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar.
Yes, thank you. That does pass the introduction, and we will see that again. Okay, Director Ferns gets to give his PowerPoint after all with our informational report on our water conservation update.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Let me share my screen really quick and we'll be off and running. I'm assuming you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm John Ferns, your Public Works Director, and it feels very appropriate that I'm presenting the water conservation update on the first day of summer, as well as what may turn out to be one of the hottest days of the year. So with that said, my computer's not cooperating. Hold on. With that said, everyone's accustomed to my drought monitor slides now. We've been in the severe category since May 3rd. However, the thing to notice on this particular slide is the very dark, exceptional drought color that's creeping in to the southern part of the state. So while we remain severe here in Yountville and the Napa Valley, the state is evolving deeper into the drought as time persists. So just, hyper awareness that the drought is bad and getting worse. But there's good news. In May of 2022, our total water consumed was only 35 acre feet as compared to last year at this time, which was 55 acre feet. So our collective conservation efforts are really starting to show, with a 36.26% reduction in our use as compared to last year. And there's an asterisk here for the total water consumed. The total water that we're reporting on this slide at this month going forward is now rector water plus well water, and I will elaborate on that in a moment. But you're used to seeing our rector water use slide. With this year, or the month of May, we only used 30.9, or essentially 31 acre feet from rector. And so our year to date is 326.5 acre feet, which is well below what we had calculated as our target for this time of year. And it's also below that 400 acre feet goal that we've all been striving toward this entire fiscal year. It's 81.6% of the 400 acre feet, with 11 months being 92% of the year. So elaborating a little bit on the well use, in May, the well was up and running and produced 4.12 acre feet of water, which was added to the system. So adding that to rector at 30.97 gave us a combined acre footage of 35.09. And that's the number that I did compare with rector use last year, and we still achieved that 36.26% conservation goal. The thing to note is the well is out of service at the moment, so we're not, and it has been for a little bit more than a week, so we're not getting the benefit of well water for the month of June. But even if our conservation efforts fell by the wayside and we matched last year's number, we would still be under the 400 acre feet. So good news on that front. And speaking of other good news, we really want to thank, you've been hearing us preach about water conservation and flip your strip and get rid of the landscaping in those landscape median strips. So we want to highlight that and thank the town as a whole for their efforts. I'm only going to show a couple of examples here, but I think the examples are very, very telling. In this particular one, on the left side, you see a puddle of water and overspray. And on the right side, after it's been converted, that water's not there. So clearly that water's been conserved. This similar picture, both of these examples are in the commercial setting, where converting away from spray and turf, that water doesn't get sprayed into the street or the sidewalk, and it's conserved. In the residential setting, we want to thank our customers that did this also, but this one actually has an unintended benefit in that not only are you saving the water but you're saving the maintenance time and greenhouse gases because you're no longer mowing that lawn. And so from the upper left to the lower right, we're saving multiple things. And as this next slide shows, it's not that unattractive. You can convert your landscape strip and it still looks good, and we conserve the water that we all need for living our daily lives. With that said, thanks again to the town constituents, water customers, for all of their efforts thus far. We here at Town Hall receive a lot of calls with our water education efforts, and I just going to run through a couple slides here really quick to reiterate. These are the big ticket ones that we get the most frequently. So I want to say them out loud again to remind people. The first one that we get the biggest questions on are the daily limits. So under a phase 2 water shortage emergency, residential meters serving 1 unit shall not exceed 450 gallons per day. That number doesn't get averaged over a month. It's 450 gallons a day. We try to stress that the bulk of the use is outdoor irrigation. So not only do you have to follow the time of day and days of the week, there's a cap on how much water you can have. And I want to remind people that 450 gallons per day per residential meter is a fairly generous number. The state is looking at adopting 47 gallons per person per day as a maximum, which in a 3-person household, that would only be just under 150 gallons per day. So the 450 gallons per day is not that restrictive. It's a goal. It's a number that we're bound to right now, but in the bigger scheme of things, it's a fair number. The other, and as I'm doing these slides, the background graph that you see is a snapshot from Ion Water. So this particular customer, you can see in the upper left corner, used 1,076 gallons on this particular day, which was Thursday. So they were watering on the correct day, but they're watering too much, irrigating too much. So the other one that we're reminding people is time of day. When it's hot like this, you don't want to water during the day because it evaporates, and the water and the steam aren't good for the plants that are receiving the watering anyway. So in this example before you, this person, again, was watering on the correct day, also met the 450 gallon goal, but they were watering between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. So we're trying to get people to move that time frame out of the hot part of the day. Next one is Irrigation Days. You've heard us talk about this a lot. The odd addresses are Tuesday, Friday. Even addresses are Monday and Thursday. And no watering on Saturday, Wednesday, and Sunday. This is consistent up and down the valley. Specifically, the city of Napa, I know, has these same rules. This particular customer is kind of exceeding lots of things here. Essentially, they're watering too much on a daily basis, and they're irrigating on non-irrigating days. So that's an example and a reminder that we have to reduce it to 2 days and keep that 2-day maximum under 450 gallons. Another question that we're getting a lot of calls about is house painting, and can people use town potable water to power wash their houses prior to painting? And the way the phase 2 water shortage emergency is written right now, the answer is no, you cannot. So we've fielded quite a few calls about this. The biggest one is always about power washing the house. And then the second one is power washing the sidewalk. And then finally, we are really, trying to avoid the excess runoff anywhere in town. And if you see it, please report it. We are seeing improvements in this. And another unintended consequence of that is Town Manager Rogers saw some runoff over the weekend and identified it not as irrigation, because most people have pared back their irrigation so it doesn't run off. He was able to identify it as a leak, and we were able to mitigate the leak in post haste on Monday morning. So there's benefits throughout all of these rules that help us save water. And then finally, as you saw in those graphs, Ion Water is very easy to use. It's informative. It allows people to track their water use. It's how we track everybody's water use. Our number has increased since May, so I'm proud to say we're up to 34%, and we're just encouraging everybody to please sign up for Eye on Water and be ever mindful of your water use.
Thank you very much. If you can possibly speak to the new state order about non-functional or decorative lawn areas, and because some people might be seeing either the town irrigating, for example, the lawn at the next to the community hall or our parks, and other areas they might see irrigation for recreational areas. Can you just comment on what the latest is from the state?
Yes, I'm happy to. Thank you for bringing that up. So the state just issued a new emergency order that became in effect on June 10th that restricts irrigating what they recall or what they're referring to as ornamental or non-functional turf. Turf is defined as grass that you mow, and functional means that it's used for human recreation and or gatherings or in a park setting. So ornamental turf that doesn't lend itself to, I mean, human recreation is really the rule or the guideline, is deemed ornamental and needs to be converted to drought, not be irrigated anymore with potable water, and or could be converted to drought tolerant landscaping. And so town staff is working to identify places that we have, that we own and operate in our park system that might be subject to that. And then we're also identifying our water customers who have these areas that we will then be reaching out, you know, now that the parking median landscape strip effort is kind of winding down because we've got most of them done. This is our next big effort is going to be the ornamental lawn and turf area.
Yeah, so thank you for addressing that. You know, I'm sure that there are some folks that wonder when we are telling our residents and our commercial property owners what the limitations are, and yet we're maintaining our park facilities, you know, the lawn areas especially. You know, we've gone to drought tolerant landscaping pretty much everywhere in our public spaces, but to be able to keep the lawn areas and parks usable, comfortable, safe, all those things that still comply with the state restrictions. So there is a difference there, but we're also trying to be as compliant as possible as well. Does this also extend to state property? For example, the Veterans Home, large areas of lawn. Again, in case somebody is wondering, are these restrictions consistent?
I would assume so. The restrictions are statewide, and I didn't read an exception in there for state-owned property. But Steve's ready to.
Yeah, I'd echo that, John. It specifically calls out institutional use and includes homeowners associations and other facilities. So I certainly think it is of curiosity as to what they might be doing up at the Veterans Home property.
Might be worth you know, some outreach to make sure that they're aware of that very new state order as well. Let's not assume that they've received that same information. Thank you. Any questions of the update on our water conservation efforts? By the way, impressive to compare some of those months and certainly to last year. There's a lot of good work being done to conserve on water, both commercially. A lot of those strips you showed clearly in the commercial corridor, and so we're seeing some good compliance by our business owners as well as our residents. Councilmember Tagliabashi.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar. One question for Director Ferns. Would you say that the reduction is a combination of finding all those, what I would imagine are constant and pretty big leaks and flipping the strip, or is there one that you think has benefited this reduction more than another? in terms of some of the reduction of the numbers and usage? And
I think the reduction of the leaks has been a fairly large portion of it, but I haven't done an analysis of it, but I believe that raising everyone's awareness about the irrigation and how much water goes, how much potable drinking water goes to irrigation, and the tireless efforts of staff in reaching out with the door hangers, the courtesy notices, and the notices of violation have brought a lot of customers, has raised their awareness and brought them in, reduced their numbers drastically. There was just a lot of people that had no idea how much water was being thrown on their lawns, how often, and had no control over it or no awareness of it. And once they became aware, everyone's been really reactive and dialed everything back.
Yeah, I was going to ask a follow-up on that, which was, are we seeing, I'm assuming it's rare that we are seeing non-compliance after education to the point where we're actually having to fine somebody, which would certainly be a step before actually having to shut off water or something like that. So I'm assuming that's a pretty rare thing even to get to the fine stage. Is that true?
I'm not going to quite say that. What I will say, though, is that our staff really works diligently, and it will be 4 communications before somebody gets to a fine situation. But we will actually be putting a communications together. But with the next cycle of water bills, there will be 22 customers, I believe, Erica, if I'm recalling from our conversation, that will be receiving their initial water fine for excessive water use.
Is that a combination of residential and commercial?
Residential only.
Really? Okay. Interesting. Thanks. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Director Burns for your report and for all the work that you do. And I guess I'm hoping that one of the things that we've approved for this budget in a code compliance person or officer, or however we'll title it, will be an individual that will help your department, help you public education. Water drought and water conservation is not going away probably forever, considering. And so I hope that person will be helpful. And I just had one question in terms of our well water use. I'm just very thankful for what our commercial businesses and residents have done to get us under the 400 acre foot, considering how dark it looked at 8 or 9 months ago. So is there a need to use are you just using that water to get to test that system and get it up to a use if we need it? I mean, it didn't seem like the 4 acres foot makes much of a difference. Could you explain that to me?
So the answer is yes to both parts of your question. We spent the better part of a year converting the well from an emergency well to an operational well and going through the permitting process to make that happen. And in doing so, we had to investigate all of the infrastructure associated with running the well in a manner where it can contribute to the system. Right now, the well is our biggest source of backup water, meaning the city, we're still connected to the city of Napa water system. However, that water is expensive. So we developed the well as a reliable water source. And then we're going to use it. We're going to determine how to best use it going forward, is what I think I'm trying to say.
I also think if you're looking at it in terms of an illustration, Councilmember Knight, it's not so much 4 acre feet in a month, but 4 acre feet times 12 is 48. will practice Council Member Mulder's rounding up to 50. We've been asked to cut our water use from Rector by 100 acre feet. So when you look at it in a more of a total sense, I do think 4 to 5 acre feet on a monthly basis is significant, because it does give us a little bit of cushion, and it will help to provide that balance. So, I mean, when you look at it in that order of magnitude, it is actually going to be, I think, quite significant in our operations.
And I appreciate that. What I appreciate your explanation, and what I hope our community is that, I mean, a year ago, it seemed daunting in our early months where we were not meeting our, and so I really appreciate the town's foresight and the Public Works Department's work, basically get a system up and running as a backup in case we needed it and need it in the next fiscal year as well. So thank you for that explanation and for the work.
I think also, in that same vein, if you go back to Public Works Director's chart, you remember when we first started our education campaign and everything, a lot of our focus was getting people aware. And what I think you'll see now as we move into this year, they're going to be maintaining that awareness. So we're going to start, the first several months did not go well. We had a lot of education and a lot of adjustment people need to be making. And I think what we're going to see as we move in this water year is that people will be maintaining that usage, which means there'll be a reduced overall demand based on that education and compliance that will serve us well going forward.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Glad the icon is smiling. Promise. Okay, we're going to move on to council meeting reports, comments. I'll start off with Napa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. There was a meeting today where we adopted the annual budget. Also prior to that, because we had our Napa County City Selection Committee, which is all the mayors, and that's in conjunction prior to a flood control board meeting. Today we appointed to the Association of Bay Area Governments and MCE, formerly known as Marin Clean Energy, county representatives. And so we, let's see, I have the wrong note here, but here we go. The Associated Bay Area Governments, Mayor Garcia and Council Member Anna Shuto from St. Helena, Mayor Garcia from American Canyon, have been and will be continuing as our primary and alternate on ABAG. Marine Clean Energy, or MCE, needs a new alternate, and the rotation typically goes to the chair of the city selection committee, and that became Mayor Jeff Ellsworth today. And so he is the new MCE board representative, alternate representative. Supervisor Wagenknecht continues as the primary on the executive committee for MCE. And also, as part of the typical rotation for the Napa County City Selection Committee of the mayors, the rotation changed today to the city of St. Helena, Mayor Ellsworth as the chair, and the town of Yountville, myself, as the vice chair. And so we only typically meet once, sometimes twice a year. And so we haven't changed the chair in quite a while, but that also happened. So moving on to Napa Valley Transportation Authority. On Wednesday, tomorrow, there's a groundbreaking for the board of directors and other partners for the Soskel Junction project, a massive project down at the south part of the county. right by the grape crusher where Fiscal meets Highway 29. And that has been several years in the making, and the groundbreaking is going to happen tomorrow at, I believe it's 10 a.m. And so I'll be down there. I'm not sure. I haven't checked in with Councilmember Tagliabashi, also on NVTA, if he's in. So we will be down there again. Incoming chair and vice chair were appointed at NVTA. Incoming chair is Napa City Council member Liz Alessio, who has been the vice chair. And again, following typical jurisdictional rotation, the new vice chair from American Canyon, Mark Joseph. Also, we received a Vine Trail update presentation. More information about the Calistoga to St. Helena segment that had a groundbreaking very recently, and also discussion about a relocation of the Welcome to Napa Valley sign that involves the Napa Valley Vintners, Caltrans, the Napa Valley Wine Train, and the Vine Trail, as well as I've been involved with talks representing the town of Yountville, because they are talking about, this has been a conversation for a number of years actually, but it has been reintroduced about relocating the south sign. There's one up in the Calistoga area, but also we all know that iconic Welcome to Napa Valley, wine is bottled poetry, that is actually a sign that is technically owned by the Napa Valley Vintners, but it's been on wine train property and has caused some safety concerns for a long time about people running across Highway 29, running across the train tracks, and various behavior. So they're looking at a location just north of the town of Yountville, in an area, the very north end of Washington Street as it merges with Highway 29. And it's near, actually would be a part of Caltrans property. There's a bit of a kind of a crescent area there where Caltrans often stages equipment for projects. And there's a discussion about possibly relocating the sign. It would avoid any crossover of the wine train tracks and have dedicated parking and area for people to take their Instagram photos and selfies and do their TikTok videos in front of the sign without jeopardizing themselves or others. So that was the main issues with the MBTA. Let me move on to LAFCO. Do we have I know you had a meeting, so I'm guessing you have a report. Councilmember Mullen.
I do have a report. So LAFCO met Monday, June 6th. And first, I have two items. The commission approved unanimously a contract with somebody we know well, attorney Gary Bell and his law firm, to represent Napa County LAFCO, and this will be effective July 1st, 2022. Also, we had held a public hearing. This public hearing, the owners of a 160-acre property on Green Island Road in unincorporated county, directly adjacent to the city of American Canyon, requested to annex their property to the city of American Canyon so that it could someday be developed. It's currently a vineyard. They have been taking out vineyards, some of the vines. They said that saline, I guess salt, has built up in the soils over the years from use of the American Canyon recycled water, and that's preventing the ability for them to continue operating the land as a vineyard. The county unanimously declined. It was 0-5 to put the land into the city of American Canyon sphere of influence. There were numerous reasons. One was that the property is outside of American Canyon's voter approved growth boundary. And also American Canyon took no position in support of a change to its sphere of influence. LAFCO did, however, agree with an additional request from the Green Island Vineyards LLC to add the American Canyon Fire Protection District into their sphere so that firefighting and emergency medical services could be provided to the site. So that was a very short version of a long meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a report on Watershed Information and Conservation Council? No? Okay. Moving on to Cal City's update. I just wanted to share, it's more of a general state budget update, but a lot of information comes through Cal City's. Legislators passed a state budget by their June 15th deadline. It's amazing how motivated they get to take action when their paychecks are in jeopardy. But they did that, except that many trailer bills are going to follow to actually fill in a lot of gaps that were in the budget that had placeholders in them. And so a lot more budget work to be done at the state level. And then the governor will be signing that budget eventually, should be before the end of June. It needs to be. So a lot of work still going on at the state level. Other Cal Cities update, Vice Mayor, any update?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dunbar. So we had a Revenue and Taxation Policy Committee meeting on June the 9th. And at that meeting, we really went over a myriad number of bills that are pending or, the league has taken different positions on. Most of them the league opposed. So I'm not going to read those. But they also did shift $10 billion in the state's budget so that they would be under the GAN limit. And they proposed a constitutional amendment to raise the limit in the future, but it was just proposed. And then they had a small business grant presentation called venturize.org. That's small business help, and it was a good presentation. So they do have a smallbusinessmajority.org website in case people are looking for that. I wanted to say that I also attended the Association of Bay Area Governments. I'm a representative from Yountville and do vote with them. And they had the whole thing was about housing and regional resources for cities. And it was very interesting that some of the presentations that they had and some of the grants that are going to be available through the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority. So it's worth looking into. And I have some information if anyone would like to have a follow-up about how to go about reaching the ABAG to look into the funding availability. And then finally, I also attended the flood control and water conservation the week before they approved the budget. And at that meeting that I attended, they went through all the budget parameters. So those were my meetings this week or this month.
Right.
So far.
Any other Cal Cities update from any members that are participating in that?
I have a couple updates.
Cal Cities?
Cal Cities, correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I attended on June 9th a Cal Cities Community Service Committee, and we received presentations on parks and open space, fire safety councils that exist in the state, I think very much like the FireWise Foundation maybe that exists in Napa County, and then a report from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, disaster preparedness. So we disaster preparedness event here in the town, an education event in September. So there was some useful information, reports on legislation that is following having to do with community services. Second item is I've been very fortunate the last years, and this year I served again as a jurist for the Helen Putnam Awards. That's a program where cities apply for recognition from Cal Cities for programs they do. It's always very interesting. Some of these programs we do here in town as well, but really to see how or what cities do, and also a recognition for our community of the fact Parks and Recreation Director and Recreation Supervisor actually do much more than just Parks and Rec. We really have a full and active community services department, with them being involved in things beyond Parks and Rec. And so it was interesting. There was awards, cities applied economic recovery programs like we did here, very much like what we did in our community. Education programs for students during the pandemic, as well as some park development programs that were for people of all levels of ability to be able to participate in a park. So it was educational, and I appreciated the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mueller?
Yes, I attended 2 Cal Cities meetings. The first one was Environmental Quality Policy Committee on June the 10th. There was an interesting presentation from the city of Emeryville and other cities like Emeryville that are doing a lot of building, are developing what they're calling REACH codes, R-E-A-C-H. And these REACH codes, they're specific local codes that actually exceed the requirements of the state building code, you know, such as all gas appliances and new construction and things like that. But to be able to develop them, you really need to show a very specific need, like they are with a lot of building. Also, we heard that an additional, well, 180 million in state grant money is in the budget in support of SB 1383. That's passed the legislature, and as the mayor stated, is not guaranteed yet because we have budget bill juniors and trailer bills still waiting to be completed, but we're very optimistic. And in this bill, there will be guaranteed funding for small cities, just like Yountville. So as an addition to larger municipalities. So remember last year, there was a $60 million grant. So now we've got 180 coming up. So as soon as I hear that it's been signed, I hope Yountville will reach out. We've got a code compliance officer coming, and this fits right into that grant money. Then I attended the Cal Cities solid waste recycling meeting on June 16th. I think you can see the garbage thread going through these meetings I attend. Anyway, a very interesting bill is coming up. It's taking lots of work with lots of committees, but I think it's pretty exciting. It's SB 54 from Allen. And this bill, if it's passed, would establish the Plastic Pollution Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act. So this would cover any single-use plastics and plastic single-use foodware, among other single-use plastics. And so the bill would require that any producer ensure that plastics manufactured and offered for sale or imported into the state are recyclable or compostable. And if producers are not in compliance, they would be required to pay into a fund, the California Circular Economy Fund. And this fund would then use those funds to develop methods and processes to develop these plastics. So that's my update.
Thank you. I know the Vice Mayor and I are very familiar with the conversation about REACH codes, and and that's setting up our Climate Action Committee report quite nicely. But reach codes has been one of those topics that's been discussed at some length with our the countywide Climate Action Committee. And I'll just jump into that report real quickly. We're meeting this Friday. The agenda includes considering creating a working group to develop a regional climate action plan and a work plan for a presentation to the committee itself in September. Also, we're expecting an update on our greenhouse gas emissions report. At the last meeting, the Climate Action Committee recommended to all 6 of the Napa County jurisdictions that we do in fact create a regional climate action plan. And so the next step naturally would be to have a working group that helps shape what that means and what the financial commitments might be for each of the jurisdictions. Also, I will be attending the Napa Thrives Climate Action and Regenerative Farming Seminar this Thursday up at Charles Krug Winery. They also have an offsite workshop at CV Vineyards where they are looking at combination of compost and biochar as elements that are integrated into vineyard planting and farming techniques. So busy time with that. Vice Mayor, do you have something else to on the Climate Action Committee?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mayor. It was about actually, that's not it. But since I'm speaking, I wanted to thank Councilmember Knight for agreeing to co-chair the climate action plan, the disaster preparedness plan event that we're going to host on September 29th. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see anything else on CAC. One other ad hoc committee I'm involved with at the county level is a rental housing group. We've had a series of Zoom calls over the last probably 18 months, if not throughout the entire pandemic. And those are being started back up again. There's a meeting this Thursday afternoon. And so if there's anything to report out, I'll share that at our next council meeting. That's with some elected officials as well as housing advocates, county staff that's specifically focused on housing and homelessness, and other stakeholders. So we'll be looking at that. Certainly there's a concern about folks that are renting and rental assistance programs ending at the state level and what the local ramifications might be there. So I'm going to go to reports and announcements, and if anyone has any others, please raise your hand. This Saturday is Rock the Ride, which is not only a cycling event. Yes, Joe T, you'll be ready to go. We'll be out there. They're offering a walking component to this, but it's mainly a ride cycling event. Starts at the Yountville Community Center Saturday morning, and it'll end up at the Yountville Community Park for an activity. This is principally around gun safety and promoting awareness, how to try to reduce gun violence and also educate people on gun safety. There'll be a number of speakers, some advocates, certainly our own Housley family with Elena Voice Foundation is being represented there. Congressman Thompson has been a principal with that effort for many years. Rebecca Koch, I want to just call out the work that she does. She does a lot of promoting and organizing of cycling events, but she's been really carrying this event from its inception and does a wonderful job bringing together a lot of partners on this. So I hate to say, Joe, that we're looking at mid-90s on Saturday, apparently, but thankfully we'll be leaving early. We might need to even leave a little earlier than scheduled for that 25-mile ride. Also, I want to recognize, since this will be happening before we meet as a council again, Sally and Don Schmidt are being recognized for their contributions to the Yountville community. A celebration is being planned for Thursday, June 30th from 5:30 to 7:30. Tickets are being required for that event. It's being organized by the town as well as our Yountville Arts Commission, especially Rhonda Shearer. I want to thank her for the significant lifting that she is doing for this event. I will be presenting a proclamation. We recently did one when Sally Schmidt passed, but we have a proclamation representing our Yountville community for both of them and their significant contributions and the legacy they have here in Yountville. Also, just a reminder, there will be a 4th of July celebration. Unfortunately, it won't include fireworks, but from 4 to 7 p.m. at Veterans Memorial Park, there will be a lot of activities, including live music, various fun, family-friendly activities, food trucks. So really, I'm sure a great celebration, even without the fireworks. And we can imagine July 4th, severe wildfire risk with those, even though American Canyon, I believe, is doing fireworks. Also, we have some logistical issues related to the Veterans Home and access to the ability to do a display like that. So anyway, remember July 4th, 4 to 7, Veterans Memorial Park. So look forward to that. Are there any other reports or announcements, Councilmember Knight?
Mayor, thank you. Thank you for your reporting of Rock the Ride. But I also want to thank you. I noted a couple of weeks ago, I think I saw it on maybe your Facebook page, that you joined a open letter to Congress from the National League of Cities as for local elected to prevent gun violence. Thank you for doing that. And I just was hoping to make a request that possibly that in July the town council could consider joining that letter. I know we're all following and hoping that the U.S. Senate takes action, but we've just been locally reminded about our the tragedy at the Pathway House home, and then this past Father's Day, Eric statement about Father's Day and gun violence that just reminded me of the importance that we support our community and try to reduce gun violence. So I guess I'm asking if there action hasn't been taken by July by the federal government, that we can your support for that letter, and the whole council have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I can send that letter to Steve, who can share it with the rest of the council. I don't remember offhand if there was a specific deadline for signing of that, if it was to get in front of Congress and potential action there, but I'll track that letter down and forward it to Steve to make sure that you all can individually have an opportunity, because I believe it was sent for individual elected officials across the country. So we wouldn't have to wait until we reconvene as a council. Individuals could potentially sign on that. So let me, I'll track that email down and share it with council.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. I believe that's all I have. And if no other reports or announcements, again, we do have a closed session. Gary, if you want to read into the record why we are convening and if you anticipate any reportable action.
Sure. There's one closed session this evening. No reportable action is anticipated. This is a conference with real property negotiators. The property address and description is along Washington Street next to Veterans Memorial Park between California Drive and Champaign Drive. The town negotiator is the town manager. Negotiating party is Hotel Yountville, and price in terms of payment under negotiation. And that's it.
Thank you. And so a reminder, we will reconvene just to adjourn after our closed session, but also a reminder that earlier this afternoon, we did cancel officially our July 5th meeting. Typically, we cancel meetings after national holidays, and so we will not have another meeting until July 19th. And so if
Can we
there is
take a
any,
5-minute break between meetings?
yes.
Zooming out and zooming in?
We don't have to, are we leaving this Zoom? I don't remember, Gary. Yes, we are. Okay. So yes, no more than 5 minutes, less is better. But yes, we'll leave this meeting and reconvene. And if we need to report anything, we will, but it's not anticipated. So just a reminder, our next regular meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 19th at 3 p.m. We will evaluate prior to that meeting if public health conditions have changed enough to reconvene in person. If not, we will be on Zoom yet again. So again, thanks to our entire town staff and all the folks that were involved in getting our budget together. And thank you to the council for passing this very balanced budget unanimously. It sends a great message, I think, to our community that we're representing our finances in a very positive, responsible way. So with that, we're going to leave this meeting and convene in closed session. Thanks, everybody.